Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. Asterisk, 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 the shadow within. It often begins subtly, so quietly that you could almost convince yourself nothing is wrong. You might be sitting in a cafe, talking with friends, or walking down a familiar street when suddenly a shift occurs, an invisible tightening in the chest. A quickening of thought, a breath that doesn't quite reach its end. Nobody around you notices, and yet you feel it distinctly. A heaviness, a presence, like an invisible hand pressing down against your ribcage. It is anxiety, though in that moment it feels less like a clinical label and more like an intimate shadow that lives just beneath your skin. Sometimes it strikes without warning. Storm on a cloudless day. Other times, you know the pattern too well. The way it creeps in as you lie awake at night, rehearsing tomorrow's tasks, imagining conversations, anticipating failures. Even when the outside world looks calm, the inside world is not. The body responds as if danger lurks nearby. The breath shallows. The heart stutters into a sprint. The mind spins webs of what-ifs that cling tighter the more you try to shake them off. And so the cycle begins. You fear the return of fear itself. The memory of anxiety is enough to summon its ghost. You become anxious about being anxious. Ashamed that you cannot simply switch it off. Guilty that despite having so much to be grateful for, you cannot rest in peace of mind. The world praises resilience, confidence, composure, but inside, you are a knot of restless energy, fraying further each time you try to pull it together. You may have been told this is a problem, a flaw that requires fixing. Vice comes packaged neatly. Breathe deeper, think positive, distract yourself, stay busy. Society offers breathing apps, productivity hacks, morning routines, all promising stability. But deep down, you know none of these methods pierce the truth. You perform calmness, like a mask, hoping no one will notice the storm raging underneath. Yet, you feel it. Something unresolved. Something that refuses to be tamed. What if, though the entire framing is wrong? What if anxiety is not a mistake in need of repair, but a message in need of hearing? What if, rather than a weakness, it is a form of inner intelligence and alarm, calling you to look where you have refused to look, to listen where you have silenced yourself? This thought alone is disorienting. After all, how could something so uncomfortable, so exhausting, be anything but an affliction? Yet, consider it closely. Every time anxiety arises, it reveals what you most fear to confront. It shines light on the fragile walls of control you build around yourself. Perhaps, then, it is not here to break you, but to show you what must finally be faced. Alan Watts once observed that the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are two sides of the same coin. The more we cling to certainty, the more fragile we become. We are terrified of losing control, yet the effort to preserve control is what summons the terror. We suffer not because the world is inherently unstable, but because we cannot bear to admit that instability is the nature of reality itself. Life is impermanent, unpredictable, uncontrollable, and anxiety, far from being a glitch, is the mind's natural protest against this truth. Think of it. How much of your suffering comes not from what is happening, but from what you fear might happen? Anxiety thrives in the gap between reality and imagination. It surfaces when you cling to a picture of how life should be and fear the collapse of that illusion. It whispers, what if you fail? What if they leave? What if you lose everything? And because these questions have no final answer, the mind circles endlessly, chasing a control it will never grasp. You try to resist. You breathe deeply, chant affirmations. Immerse yourself in distractions. You tell yourself everything is fine. But anxiety does not believe in lies. It knows when you are pretending. The harder you push it down, the louder it cries out, until finally you face the haunting question, what if I am not broken? What if anxiety itself is not the enemy? To view anxiety in this way is to turn the mirror upon yourself. The racing heart, the tight chest, the rapid-fire thoughts, these are not random malfunctions. They are signals, messages from the deep well of your humanity. They reveal where you are clinging, where you are resisting, where you are at war with your own existence. Anxiety becomes not a foe to be conquered, but a messenger to be understood. Imagine this possibility, that what you have always treated as an intruder is, in fact, a teacher. That every restless night, every trembling breath, every surge of panic is a lesson in disguise. Anxiety points you toward the places where you have built your life on illusions of permanence, where you have ignored the truth of change, where you have silenced your authentic voice. It calls you to wake up not to perfection, but to presence. This perspective is unsettling because it demands a shift from control to surrender. It means no longer seeing anxiety as a flaw to be eradicated, but as an integral part of the human condition. It means listening when the body shakes, when the chest tightens, when the breath falters. It means daring to ask, what is this unease trying to tell me? What truth have I been afraid to face? And here lies the beginning of liberation. Not relief in the sense of quick fixes or permanent cures, but clarity, the understanding that anxiety is not proof of weakness, but proof of life. It is evidence of sensitivity, of awareness, of the deep human desire to find stability in an unstable world. So the next time it rises, do not rush to silence it. Pause. Let the wave pass through you. Notice the thoughts, the sensations, the fear beneath the fear. Treat it not as a punishment, but as communication. For in the trembling of your hands, in the racing of your heart, in the restless hum of your mind, lies a question older than you. Will you face the impermanence of life, or will you continue to fight against it? This is the shadow within anxiety. as both tormentor and guide. And if you dare to listen, it may reveal something startling, that what you fear most is not the anxiety itself, but the vast and uncontrollable mystery of being alive. The paradox of security: human beings are creatures of control. We plan our days, schedule our appointments, write down our goals, insure our homes, and invest for retirement. All of this arises from the same underlying desire: security, the belief that if we prepare enough, structure enough, predict enough, we can shield ourselves from chaos. Here lies the great paradox: security itself breeds insecurity. The more we attempt to guarantee stability, the more fragile and anxious we become. Alan Watts captured this with brutal simplicity. The desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. The statement seems absurd. Isn't it natural to want safety? Isn't it wise to avoid danger? But look closer. The very act of seeking security implies its absence. If you were truly secure, you would not be searching for it. The search itself is the confession that you feel unsafe, and so the harder we grasp for certainty, the deeper our sense of uncertainty becomes. We stockpile savings, but fear losing them. We search for love, but dread its loss. We construct routines, but panic when they are disrupted. Life, indifferent to our plans, shifts beneath our feet. A phone call brings bad news. Job disappears. A loved one grows ill. And in those moments, all the structures we built to protect ourselves reveal their fragility. Anxiety thrives in this gap. It feeds on the illusion that the future can be controlled. Each attempt to tame it creates new waves of fear. To permanence in a universe defined by impermanence, and it is this refusal to accept change that tightens the knot of unease. Think of the way we live, always caught between two timelines. The past, which is gone, and the future, which has not yet arrived. Rarely do we inhabit the present fully because the present feels too unstable, too thin to rest upon. Instead, we reach forward into tomorrow, rehearsing scenarios, imagining dangers, preparing defenses. Yet every attempt to anticipate the unknown leaves us further from the only moment where life actually happens. Now, Watts described modern people as ghosts, not fully alive in the present, but drifting in projections and memories we fear. The silence of the present, so we fill it with plans, distractions, and noise. And yet, beneath it all, we sense the truth. The future cannot be controlled. Reality will not bend to our blueprints. Nature itself is change, flow, impermanence. Everything from the cells in your body to the stars in the skies in constant transformation. But instead of embracing this, we cling harder. We create structures, relationships, routines, beliefs that promise stability. We treat them as anchors. And when life inevitably shifts, when the job changes, when love falters, when health declines, we are thrown into turmoil. Anxiety rises, not because life has betrayed us, but because we refuse to accept that it was always this way. Nothing was ever fixed. everything slips away. Here lies the cruel joke. The more you seek to avoid chaos, the more chaotic your inner world becomes. Anxiety is not proof of a broken mind. It is proof of a mind resisting reality. It is what happens when you try to swim against the current of impermanence. The waves are not your enemy. It is your refusal to let them carry you that creates suffering. 2. Live as though life were predictable is to live in denial. Anxiety is the body's protest against that denial. Says, stop pretending, stop clinging, stop believing that permanence exists. And yet, modern society encourages precisely the opposite. From childhood, we are told to plan for the future, to build stability, to make choices that guarantee success. We are taught to fear uncertainty as failure, to treat insecurity as weakness. Careers, financial systems, even cultural myths are built on the promise of permanence. But when the facade cracks, when recessions come, when health collapses, when death intrudes, we are left defenseless, unable to reconcile the reality of change with the story of security we have been fed. This is why, in many ways, anxiety is not a personal defect, but a cultural epidemic. It is not only your nervous system reacting, but an entire civilization's denial of impermanence pressing upon you. Every advertisement that promises a stable future, every social pressure to appear composed, every expectation that you should have it all together, these feed the illusion that control is possible. And when reality fails to match, you blame yourself. But what if the problem is not you? What if the problem is the lie of security itself? Imagine for a moment that you lived without clinging. That instead of trying to ensure every outcome, you trusted yourself to respond as life unfolded. That you allowed yourself to walk into the future without demanding guarantees. What would happen then? Would you still feel anxious? Perhaps. But that anxiety would be less like a suffocating prison and more like a passing weave, a natural response. Not a permanent state, because anxiety is not born from reality itself. It is born from our refusal to accept reality as it is. We suffer not because life changes, but because we fight against change. Watts put it bluntly, the more you plan your life, the more you lose touch with real life, which only exists in the present moment. Real life cannot be contained in blueprints or schedules. It breathes only in the now, the sound of the rain outside your window, the weight of your body in a chair, the beating of your heart in your chest. To miss this moment in pursuit of security is to miss life itself. And here lies the doorway out of the paradox. Anxiety dissolves not by force, not by mastery, not by adding more control. It dissolves by surrender. By recognizing that you cannot fix the instability of existence because instability is not a mistake. It is the essence of existence. This does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up, floating passively, or refusing responsibility. It means shifting the way you hold life. Instead of grasping for certainty, you learn to move with uncertainty. Instead of demanding guarantees, you cultivate presence. Instead of controlling the waves, you learn to surf them. In this light, anxiety becomes less a monster to be slain and more a messenger to be understood. It is the tension of trying to live in a way reality will never allow. It reminds you that permanence is an illusion, that life is always changing, that the present moment is the only ground you will ever stand on. So the next time anxiety rises, pause. Ask yourself, what am I trying to control? What am I afraid to let go of? Notice how often the answer lies not in the present, but in some imagined future. Some illusion of permanence you desperately want to hold on to. And then remember, the present is enough. The paradox of security is that the harder you seek it, the more insecure you feel. True peace begins not when you lock down the future, but when you accept that it cannot be locked down at all. The body remembers, anxiety is not only a matter of thought, it is written into the body. You feel it in the restless heartbeat, the trembling in your hands, the ache in your stomach, the stiffness in your shoulders. Long before you can put words to the experience, your flesh announces it. Something is wrong. Yet, biology shows us that nothing is wrong in the sense we imagine. What you are experiencing is not a flaw, is an ancient survival mechanism, a system millions of years in the making, trying desperately to protect you. Robert Sapolsky, the neuroscientist famed for his book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, explains this paradox with haunting clarity. In the savannah, a zebra sees a lion. In that instant, its body shifts into emergency mode. The stress system explodes into action. Adrenaline surges, muscles tighten, blood is diverted from digestion to limbs. Ready for flight? The zebra does not pause to reflect. It does not wonder what the lion thinks of it. It does not regret yesterday or plan tomorrow. Its body simply reacts pure survival. And then, once the lion disappears, something miraculous happens. The zebra relaxes. The stress system shuts down, grazes again as if nothing happened. The episode ends, the body resets, balance is restored. For the zebra, stress is temporary, purposeful, and finite. But for us, the lions are rarely real. Our predators come in the form of deadlines, arguments, bills, emails, memories, and what-ifs about the future. Our imagination, wondrous though it may be, has turned against us. Unlike the zebra, we can summon stress without danger. We can feel terror at 3 in the morning while lying safely in bed. Our bodies cannot tell the difference between a lion on the savannah and a thought in the mind. To the nervous system, both are equally real, and so the ancient alarm bell rings endlessly. Your heart pounds over a presentation next week. Your stomach twists over a text message not yet answered. Your breath shortens while imagining a loved one's death decades from now. The body does not distinguish, reacts. Day after day, it floods you with chemicals designed to keep you alive in emergencies. But when those emergencies never end, the same system that once saved you begins to corrode you. This is where the body remembers. Anxiety is not abstract, it is visceral. The muscle tension, the insomnia, the rapid heartbeat, the sweating palms, these are your survival instincts misfiring. And when repeated often enough, the misfiring becomes chronic. What was once a defense mechanism turns into an internal prison. Sapolsky demonstrates how this long-term activation wreaks havoc. Chronic stress accelerates cell aging, weakens the immune system, disrupts hormones, and impairs memory. The digestive system falters, leading to ulcers, irritable bowels, and malnutrition. The heart strains under constant pressure, increasing the risk of cardiovascular disease. Even fertility and sexual function can collapse under prolonged anxiety. This is not all in your head. It is carved into your biology, etched into your very tissue. And the cruelest part, unlike zebras, we don't just respond to real threats, we respond to imagined ones. Anticipation itself is enough to trigger the full cascade of stress responses. You don't need to be in danger. You only need to believe you might be. The exam you dread, the meeting you fear. The relationship you think will end, none of these lions exist in the present. But your body fights them as if they were leaping at your throat. It is here that anxiety reveals its double nature. One hand, it is biology doing its job, alerting you to potential danger, preparing you to respond. On the other, it becomes destructive when hijacked by modern life. When the predators are endless streams of worries, abstractions, and expectations. The same system that once gave you the speed to outrun death now collapses you under the weight of imagined futures. Think about your own body in moments of anxiety. The tight chest, the restless legs, the shallow breathing, these are echoes of ancient survival scripts. The body believes you are in danger, even if the danger is an unpaid bill or a thought about loneliness. The mind creates a ghost, and the body reacts as though the ghost were real. Sees why you feel exhausted even after doing nothing. Your body has been running from lions that never existed. Yet here lies a turning point. When you understand anxiety as biological, you begin to shed the shame. It is not weakness. It is not proof of your failure to cope. It is the misapplication of an ancient system to a modern context. You are not broken, you are an animal trying to survive in conditions your nervous system was never designed. 4. You are a hunter-gatherer body trapped among screens, alarms, and social comparisons. Your DNA expects seasons, silence, and immediate dangers. Instead, it receives 24-hour news cycles, glowing notifications, and endless uncertainty. No wonder the body trembles. So what do we do with this knowledge? Sapolsky suggests that awareness itself is part of the antidote. When you know that anxiety is not your fault but your biology, you stop blaming yourself. You stop punishing yourself for being too sensitive or too weak. Instead, you can learn to work with the system to give your body the signals. It craves that the danger has passed. That balance can return. This is why practices like deep breathing, movement, and grounding exercises are not cliches, but biology in action. When you slow the breath, especially the exhale, you send messages through the vagus nerve to the brain. We are safe now. Cortisol begins to lower. Muscles begin to release. The system, so used to ringing its alarm bell, begins to trust silence. Again, but even more than techniques, the shift requires a change in relationship. To see anxiety not as an enemy, but as a survival instinct misunderstood. To remind yourself, my body is not betraying me. It is protecting me. It just does not. Realize there is no lion here. And perhaps most importantly, to stop seeing anxiety as separate from you. It is not some alien presence inhabiting your chest. It is you, your biology, your evolution, your inheritance. To fight it endlessly is to fight yourself. To understand it is to reclaim yourself. The body remembers because the body cares. Has carried your ancestors through famines, storms, and predators. It carries you now through a world that overwhelms it with imagined threats. And though it sometimes overreacts, its purpose has always been the same. To keep you alive so the next time your heart races in the middle of the night, pause. Instead of panicking at the panic, whisper to yourself, my body is trying to protect me. It thinks there is danger. It does not know there is no lion here. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the beat. Notice the breath. Thank your body for trying, even as you guide it gently back to calm. For this is the truth Sapolsky forces us to see. Anxiety is not madness. It is memory. It is survival echoing across time. And though it may feel like a prison, it can also become a teacher. Only you learn to listen to the wisdom written in your flesh. The cruel paradox: we live in a time of abundance. Never before have human beings had so much access to knowledge, tools, and opportunities. Food arrives at our doors, machines work in our stead, and the entire sum of human learning glows on the screens we hold in our hands. By all accounts, we should be more at peace than ever. Yet paradoxically, anxiety is everywhere. For many, the very progress that promised security has become a source of unease. The more we seek certainty, the less certain we feel. Alan Watts foresaw this paradox with uncanny clarity. He called it the wisdom of insecurity, the idea that true security is impossible because life itself is impermanent. But instead of accepting this, modern society idolizes control. From childhood, we are taught to plan what career we will pursue, what partner we will marry, what kind of life we will build. We are told that a stable job, a steady income, and a carefully mapped future will save us from chaos. And yet, as the years unfold, reality refuses to conform. A job once thought secure vanishes in a recession. A relationship meant to last forever dissolves. Health falters unexpectedly. Plans collapse. And in these moments, the illusion of permanence shatters. But rather than seeing instability as natural, we interpret it as failure. We believe we did something wrong, that we were not careful enough, not disciplined enough, not good enough. Anxiety blooms not just from uncertainty itself, but from our belief that uncertainty should never have existed in the first place. Watts described this as the fundamental mistake of modern living, treating impermanence as a problem rather than as reality. A key live resisting change is to live in constant tension. The body senses the truth that everything shifts and the mind fights against it. That battle is what we call anxiety, but philosophy alone cannot explain why anxiety feels so crushing. For that, we return to biology. Robert Sapolsky's work shows that the human stress system was designed for short bursts, not for the endless activation demanded by modern life. A zebra flees a lion, then rests. We imagine a lion, then another, then 1,000 more, never resting, always alert. The same system that once saved us now poisons us. Because the lions of modern life never leave the savanna of our minds. This is the cruel paradox. Progress multiplies the number of lions. The more information we consume, the more potential threats we perceive. The more choices we have, the more paralyzed we become. The more we strive for control, the more we recognize how little control we actually possess. Anxiety is not a glitch in this system, it is its inevitable byproduct. Consider the sheer weight of expectations. Society tells us we must be productive, emotionally regulated, attractive, confident, stable. We must work hard but not burn out, love deeply but not lose ourselves, plan carefully but remain spontaneous. These contradictions create impossible standards. And when we inevitably fall short, anxiety rushes in. The body believes it has failed in its survival task. The mind believes it is inadequate. Together, they spiral into guilt, shame, and fear. And yet, even in the face of collapse, our instinct is not to surrender, but to tighten our grip. We download productivity apps. We follow self-help gurus. We craft morning routines designed to banish doubt. We set goals upon goals, convinced that just one more layer of control will silence the unrest. But as Watts warned, the more you try to grasp water with your hands, the more it slips away. Control is not security. It is a performance. Of security, the harder you perform, the more fragile you feel. Biology echoes this warning. Sapolsky's research reveals that when stress responses are activated repeatedly without resolution, the body begins to deteriorate. Cortisol floods cells, aging them prematurely. Immune systems weaken, leaving us vulnerable to illness. Memory falters as chronic stress damages the hippocampus. The very machinery designed to protect us begins to dismantle us from within. Anxiety is no longer just emotionally, becomes physical erosion. A slow corrosion of health, and yet, perhaps the most tragic part of this paradox is how we respond. Instead of compassion, we offer ourselves blame. Instead of rest, we demand discipline. We treat anxiety as weakness, believing that if we were stronger, we would not feel this way. But strength does not silence impermanence. Denial does not defeat biology. In fact, resisting these truths only deepens the suffering. Watts and Sapolsky, from their different perspectives, converge on a central truth. Resisting life creates collapse. Whether it is the mind refusing to accept impermanence or the body trapped in endless survival alarms, the result is the same. Anxiety becomes chronic, consuming, and inescapable. So what, then, is the way forward? The answer is counterintuitive. It is not to control more, but to control less. Not to resist, but to listen. Anxiety, in this light, is not an enemy, but a signal. It is the body and mind together saying, something must change. Not because you are weak, okay, but because you are human caught in the tension between biology, shaped for survival, and a society obsessed with perfection. To reinterpret anxiety is to loosen its grip. Instead of punishing yourself for feeling anxious, you can begin to ask, what is this telling me? What truth have I been unwilling to face? Anxiety often rises where your external life and internal truth are misaligned when you chase success but neglect meaning. When you perform stability but hide turmoil, when you cling to control but refuse to acknowledge change, it is here that anxiety transforms from tormentor to messenger. The pounding heart, the shallow breath, the trembling hands, these are not signs of brokenness. They are signals, alarms pointing toward a deeper need. They say, you cannot live as though life were stable. You cannot ignore your body. You cannot keep resisting impermanence. To listen to these signals does not erase anxiety overnight, but it begins to shift the relationship. Instead of being dragged into the spiral, you begin to witness it. Instead of battling the wave, you begin to ride it. And in this witnessing, in this riding, anxiety slowly loses its power to dominate you. The cruel paradox, then, is not simply that seeking security makes us insecure. It is that in trying to silence anxiety, we often amplify it. By treating it as a flaw, we deny its wisdom. By fighting it, we strengthen its grip. The way out is not force but understanding, not suppression but surrender. This is not resignation. It is not about giving up on life's plans or abandoning all responsibility. It is about living with open hands rather than clenched fists. About recognizing that true peace is not found in securing the future, but in inhabiting the present. About allowing anxiety to become a teacher rather than a tyrant. So the next time anxiety rises in your chest, remember this paradox. The more you try to force it away, the more it grows. The more you treat it as a mistake, the more it punishes you. But if you can pause, breathe, observe, begins to shift. It becomes less of a prison and more of a guide. A difficult, demanding guide, but one that ultimately points toward presence, authenticity, and acceptance. Because in the end, what anxiety reveals most is not that you are weak, but that you are alive. Alive in a world that cannot be controlled. Alive in a body that still remembers lions. Alive in a culture that forgets impermanence. And if you dare to listen, This realization can become the beginning of freedom. Anxiety as a teacher. For most of your life, you have likely been told that anxiety is a mistake, that it is something to be fixed, treated, or erased. Doctors prescribe pills. Self-help gurus offer morning routines. Meditation apps promise calm. At the tap of a button, the unspoken message is always the same. Anxiety has no value. It is nothing more than an obstacle. Yet what if the opposite is true? What if anxiety is not an error in your system, but a vital signal and invitation to awareness, a teacher disguised as discomfort? To view anxiety this way requires courage, because it means you must stop running from it. You must stop treating it as a monster lurking in the dark, and instead approach it as you would a messenger knocking at your door. At first, that messenger may appear terrifying, breathless, trembling, frantic. But if you allow them to speak, you may hear truths you have avoided for years. Alan Watts often argued that suffering arises from resisting reality. Anxiety, he suggested, is the friction between who we really are and who we pretend to be. You feel the knot in your chest. It is not because something has gone wrong. It is because you are trying to hold on to an identity, a life, or a sense of control that does not align with reality. You present yourself as stable, confident, composed, while inside you feel fragile, uncertain, and raw. Anxiety exposes the gap between appearance and truth. It is the mind's way of saying, this mask is too heavy. You cannot carry it forever. From this perspective, anxiety becomes a guardian of authenticity. It punishes you, yes, but only because you are straying from yourself. It forces you to feel the cost of living unconsciously. Every racing heartbeat, every shallow breath, every restless night is a reminder that you cannot ignore the truth indefinitely. In this sense, anxiety is not your enemy, but you're alive, the part of you that refuses to let you sleepwalk through life. Sapolsky adds another dimension. He shows that anxiety is not simply psychological, it is biological intelligence. Stress exists to protect you. The tension in your muscles, the pounding of your heart, the rush of adrenaline, these are not betrayals, but defenses. They are signals that your body believes something important is happening, something requiring your attention. When those signals are distorted, when the lions are thoughts instead of predators, the system misfires. But the system itself is not broken. It is simply overworked, confused, and in need of guidance. What this means is profound. Your anxiety is trying to help you. It may be clumsy, even destructive at times, but at its core, it is a plea for awareness. It asks you to notice the incoherence in your life, the job that suffocates you, the relationship that drains you, the pace that exhausts you. It asks you to look honestly at the fears you bear, a fear of loss, fear of death, fear of insignificance. Anxiety screams where you have refused to listen. To reinterpret anxiety as a teacher does not mean romanticizing suffering. It does not mean that panic attacks are pleasant or that chronic fear should be welcomed without compassion. It means recognizing that beneath the discomfort lies meaning. Pain is a messenger. Its purpose is not to destroy you, but to draw your attention to what must change. The path, then, is not elimination, but observation. Instead of fighting the wave, you begin to watch it. Instead of judging yourself for feeling anxious, you sit with the sensation. This is what Watts called surrender, not resignation, but presence. To surrender is not to give up, but to let go of the compulsive need to control the uncontrollable. It is to notice the pounding heart and say, "This, too, is life." Observation transforms the relationship. When you see anxiety clearly, without judgment, it begins to lose its power to dominate you. The wave still rises, but you are no longer drowning in it. You are surfing it, balancing precariously, sometimes falling, but always returning to the surface. Over time, the waves no longer terrify you. They become part of the sea you live in. Practical tools can help anchor this shift. Sapolsky points out that the body can be guided back to balance with simple signals: slower breathing, movement, rest, expression. These are not tricks, but ways of speaking to the nervous system in its own language. A long exhale tells the body the lion is gone. A walk loosens the tension of unused adrenaline. A conversation releases the pressure of unspoken fears. Small actions become profound when seen as acts of communication between mind and body. But beyond tools lies something even greater: perspective. When you stop seeing anxiety as an enemy, you begin to see what it reveals. You notice the life you are living versus the life you want. You recognize the illusions you cling to and the truths you avoid. You hear the silent voice that says, "Slow down, breathe, be here now." And this is where anxiety ceases to be a prison and becomes a teacher. It teaches you presence because the only way to face it is in the moment. It teaches you humility because it shows you the limits of your control. It teaches you authenticity because it punishes you when you stray too far from yourself. It teaches you compassion because you realize others carry the same invisible weight. The final liberation, then, is not in curing anxiety, but in transforming it. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" you ask, "What is this showing me?" Instead of resisting the tide, you allow it to wash over you, knowing it is part of being alive. This does not mean anxiety disappears. Life will always bring uncertainty. The body will always react. The mind will always imagine futures it cannot control. But the difference lies in how you meet it. No longer as a curse, but as a companion. No longer as a flaw, but as a guide. Anxiety in this light is the beginning of awareness. It is the first step toward freedom, because it forces you to confront reality as it is: impermanent, unpredictable, uncontrollable, but also alive, immediate, and full of possibility. The very thing you feared becomes the doorway you step through into presence. So the next time you feel that invisible hand tighten on your chest, pause. Instead of running, listen. Instead of blaming yourself, thank your body for speaking. Instead of drowning in fear, ask, "What is this moment trying to teach me?" For perhaps the greatest secret is this: The cure for anxiety is not certainty, but clarity. Not safety, but presence. Not control, but surrender. Anxiety may never vanish, but it can transform. Okay. And when it does, it becomes what it was always meant to be, a teacher.